Danielle. Welcome to the
Hi.
House of Visionaries podcast. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, of course. For a little bit of background, so we host this House of Visionaries podcast. We do all of our in-person events, and you see kind of our content online. But we've started this really to highlight a lot of our community members and the amazing work that they're doing through the House of Visionaries, kind of outside of our events, and let people get to know each other, tackle some really cool topics, highlight leadership, that sort of thing. So obviously, that's why we're here today. I'll let you give a little bit of an introduction. But I remember we had met a little while back through House of Visionaries. I think you were like 6 months into Outlook
Yep.
at that point. So it was a really kind of cool time for us to chat. And I also remember from that conversation, I mean, we were talking about your background, not just your work at Outlook, but also just how you came up through the HR ranks and just thinking
Yes.
like, this is the exact story and like perspective that we highlight in House of Visionaries, the kind of like non-traditional, like new fresh ideas around HR coming up the ranks. So we thought immediately like what a cool story to highlight. And I know there's some exciting things going on with Outlook as well, and in the space that you all are pioneering. So it'll give us a good chance to kind of learn about that too. Yeah, I'll let you do I guess, a quick introduction, and then of course the rest of the pod is going to be around your career and experience and leadership.
Sure. Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, I'll try to stick to the quick background, but like you noted, it's a very unique sort of situation. So high level is kind of difficult sometimes to do. So feel free to prod me on anything else that you want to know
Sure.
more about. But yes, when we had first talked, I think I was 6 months in at Outlook. So a lot has changed. Since then, it's been quite the journey. I have been in corporate for just about 5 years now, but had been in professional settings 15 years before that, through nonprofit education space. So quite a different background than the most typical HR leaders and those within the TA space. And it's been quite the journey. So I have been able to learn so much in such a short period of time that it's really been quite amazing. So, yes, thank you. My background is very odd and unique, but I think it's what's given me sort of that unique lens into a space that could use some fresh eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. That certainly could use a lot of fresh eyes and different perspectives. I guess to give the audience like an idea of just the scale and the scope kind of your career and how it skyrocketed. I mean, at your first corporate role, as you mentioned, you started as recruitment coordinator,
Yep.
basically reinvented talent acquisition for like a 5,000 person global company, very short period of time. It would be great to kind of get your background on like what did you see that others didn't that allowed for that incredible career trajectory.
Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, it was very interesting. And I think I came into that space in a time where I was really unsure, sort of, what I wanted to do next with this new sort of chapter in my professional career, right? So I think I entered it with just such a authentic yearn for learning this new space, that I was able to just kind of be thrown in a deep end, have this role that was a recruitment coordinator, talent acquisition specialist, right? And to be honest, I didn't even really understand what that meant. It was just an opportunity for me to sort of get into the biopharma, biotech space. And I kind of fell in love with that area. And then once I started to understand really like what talent acquisition meant within biopharma, the difference between the internal TA teams, where they were trying to move, how they were using external partners, I really took this sort of whole look approach at what they were doing. There was one contract recruiter at the time when I had joined, and she was working any and all internal roles that the company had. And I was able to very quickly see the savings. So on the money side, I was able to see financially how much of an impact she was able to make as a person of one. But I think more importantly, I was able to see when she started talking with hiring managers, her internal vision and her internal lens lent so much benefit to bringing in the right talent. So I think coming from a space where, I was working with middle schoolers, specifically like 10 to 14-year-olds, and that's a tough age. you really get to know how important it is to manage relationships and get to know people so you can best serve them, right? So I think me coming into that space in this role that really was undefined, what the recruitment coordinator was supposed to do, allowed me to start to gain relationships with many of the hiring managers and leadership throughout North America. And within that, I was able to very quickly understand what those hiring managers were looking for in their recruitment needs. So instead of them finding these external partners or going to fall in patterns that they had done and paying these really high fees, they were able to start to see the ROI on utilizing the internal talent team. So instead of me coordinating their interview schedules, they really started to utilize me as a thought partner. And once that move sort of happened, there was sort of this snowball effect where we were able to start a rec load of 10, and then we had 20, and then we had 50. And then within 6 months, we had saved $1 million in recruitment fees. And I was able to track that and show them what they would have spent. Because, I was very quickly able to figure out that business is going to care about the numbers first. And that's how I'm going to get that buy in. So I was able to share the ROI on the metrics and the numbers, and also have the backing of a lot of the leadership and hiring managers that I had helped support and brought some really great talent in. And from there, we had the president of North America say, I don't know who this person is, but we're only using the internal talent team. So I was very lucky to have that messaging from the top down. So then everybody just, instead of having to get this buy-in for change, it happened organically and authentically alongside having leadership kind of put this into place. So everything really spiraled sort of from there. Within that time period, I had gone from a contract recruiter to joining full time after like 60 days. And then from there, went into a talent acquisition business partner and continued to grow and scale that team. We had so many roles that we had to bring in a lot more contract recruiters. So then I turned into a talent acquisition manager. Global kind of caught wind of what North America was doing. And same thing. They were like, I don't know what you guys are doing there, but we should be doing it globally. So let's try to see how we can implement that. And I was able to start to coordinate with different global HR partners and form global HR VPs that were on my team, and just started to expand this scope and the impact that we were able to have. And by the end, I landed there as a talent acquisition senior manager. I had a team of 5 recruiters and 2 talent acquisition business partners, and we touched 24 countries that had not been utilizing an internal TA team before I left and joined Outlook. So it was a really amazing time. The trajectory was, I think, kind of unheard of. And again, I think that part of that was just me approaching it in a different capacity than anybody had really done before. And I think that my unique background had really led to that, which I started to lean into deeply. Like, that was one of those things that I think imposter syndrome, of course, especially coming from somebody with such a different background, can sneak in. And once I started to really lean into whatever I'm doing is working, and maybe it's my unique background that is making me this unicorn candidate, the people that hiring managers look for when they want these, that's the perspective that I can give that other folks can't, because I'm the only one that has that specific trajectory. But I think that opened up the conversation to really realize how unique backgrounds can provide diversity of thought. So it was a wonderful experience, very happy for it. But that's sort of the nitty gritty into how that wild trajectory of coming in as a contract talent acquisition specialist landed me a team of 8 globally.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's an incredible amount of impact within such a short period of time, too. So then it just kind of snowballed from there. But I think it touches on a really great point around, and we talk about this a lot in House of Visionaries, have had events around it. In order to really like advocate for the importance of TA and to advocate for yourself within that, you have to kind of take off the traditional HR hat. You have to think
Yep.
like an entrepreneur. You have to think about, if I owned this business, like, what do they care about and how am I contributing to that? and that will make the case for you very quickly, and will
Yeah.
earn you that seat at the table, of course,
Yeah.
which is really really exciting. So of course I mentioned like different lens to HR and TA and kind of how you brought that, but anything specific around maybe like the nonprofit kind of education space that really shifted your perspective? I mean, you talked about getting to know people really well in relationships, but anything else around kind of the environment of being in nonprofit and education that gave you this entire new kind of outlook on the corporate setting?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so much that I found from what I had done before that I was able to place either as learning lessons or applying it in these different ways that, again, at first I was probably thinking like, oh, imposter syndrome. I need to kind of walk away from that nonprofit scene and education and what I was contributing there. And then once I realized how beneficial that experience was to me, because it was 15 years of my professional career, um, I think that that really helped me create a positive impact for whichever company that I was working with. So I think one of the lessons for sure is, which has greatly helped me where I am now, because as opposed to my previous company that was 5,000 people globally, I'm really at more of a small cap right now. We are 22 people, I think, full time employees. So it's a much different lens. But learning to stay lean and be scrappy, especially when you're coming from nonprofit where, I didn't realize I was doing talent acquisition there, or that I didn't realize I was their default HR person as a site director or program coordinator, because you have to wear multiple hats. So I think understanding how different folks learn and work in certain environments is so important to making sure you're matching the right people. So for example, at the last company, knowing that it was more of sort of a mid-sized pharma, those that had big pharma experience weren't necessarily going to be the right fit there. And not that their profiles weren't aligned, because a lot of the times those are the folks traditionally that hiring managers would identify and say, this person's worked for this company. This is, great. Look at their CV. It matches, it aligns. But we're missing that entire lane of, this doesn't fit their goals, their aspirations, their way of working. They could be completely seasoned and perfect in the function that we're trying to put them in, but they may have no experience at a startup or midsize and what that looks like and how to stay lean and how we function when there aren't perfect processes in place. So I think me being able to kind of see that from a different lens of, okay, wow, there are different profiles of people rather than just their CVs. Like the CVs is just scratching the surface. And what's fantastic about CVs, and especially now where we're going with AI, you can identify those things super quickly, right? It's like we can align whether a person is perfect for a role dependent upon their CV. But what you cannot get is that human element of reading a situation, reading a company, and reading the candidates that are coming in. And I think that that's where, again, going back to that relationship mapping piece that I had really honed my skills in when dealing with adolescents and their parents and school administration and, town, the community members from different towns and public schooling. It was so aligned with candidates, hiring managers, and leadership. It was the exact same thing. And I was able to apply it and really understand the way that relationships can be complicated, getting to know folks and knowing what they need and being able to be proactive was exactly what I was able to do from nonprofit, and take all of that with the hardest audience of having 10 to 13-year-olds tell you exactly how they feel and being able to apply that to corporate. So I think that that was huge, to have that lens that nobody else was really getting, because I had that nonprofit and education specific and even more specific adolescence again, gave me that lens where I was really able to apply it to the folks that are in the different corporate spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk a lot about the importance of diversity of voices within HR, within decision making as well. So
Right.
on that topic as well, I mean, you also have an amazing seat at the leadership table of where you are right now. And I think we talked a
Yep.
little bit about before, HR has a really, really tough time kind of
Yep.
finding their voice within the leadership circle within their company. I mean, how did you go and take that seat at the table or earn it within your company?
Yeah. And that's also interesting because, I had worked with the CEO of Outlook where I am now previously. So, but again, it was a much bigger company where I had been before. So we had worked together, but not in the same capacity that now we're working, where I report directly to him and I have a seat at that leadership table. And what does that look like? Right. So I had the ability because one, I had worked with him and he had seen me work, and I think he understood how important a people function could be. So I came in the capacity of a senior director for HR and talent at Outlook. The whole point of that was to just get somebody in there when they were in this sort of startup phase where they didn't know, how much runway do we have? Where are we going? Are we getting FDA approval? It was a much smaller pipeline and portfolio than the company I'd been at before. So again, that kind of leans back into need to stay lean and do things a lot differently than we had been doing. So coming in as a senior director, I was able to kind of take this entire function of both HR, people, talent, and look at it from a whole lens and say, how do I want to build this out sustainably in a small company? And I think knowing that it's essentially very similar to what I had just done, and not because the company size is so different, it is, but there wasn't buy-in where I was before. I just landed in there because they needed help with somebody's scheduling. The ROI was seen once I was able to get in there and develop that lane. So I've already kind of done it. And I also then, with the benefit of my previous company, was able to see where they could have done things maybe more efficiently. And if they had thought about it from the start and from a foundational level, how would we build this out with, the greatest impact, and how can we do it and scale it and keep this culture? So that's sort of been my target goal of what I wanted to create. Concurrently, we were building this trajectory to getting FDA approval that we've been working on for months. So I had to balance that where I'm really just a team of myself and there's one HR director. So putting into effect all of these things that we want to do and how we want to build out a function, but realistically, where do the priorities land right now? How am I going to balance all of this work? Where are we going to get there from? So was able to kind of put, again, my expertise into saying, listen, I know that the business is immediately going to look at numbers, right? So I know that the board will be able to figure that out as well. If they need some recruiting, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and be their recruiter. So that was sort of the first thing that I did, probably around the last time you and I had spoke. I was probably about 5 or 6 months in when we said we need these 6 positions that are identified as critical to help us get FDA approval in the US. And we didn't have the capacity to pay external agencies to the same way that they had been doing it traditionally. I was able to kind of look at that and say, like, hey, we can save a lot of money if I fill these roles and do them myself. So we were able to fill those 6 roles. I think I filled them within 45 days of starting
Wow.
all 6 of them. And projected savings was probably like $450,000. So again, it's such an easy way to make such a quick impact that it allows people like, the rest of C-suite or the board to look at it and say, wow, this is where we can really make a difference. And this is why HR and people should have a true seat at the table, because it's not just, how we've said it. It's like kid sister of some of these leadership
Right.
teams. It's like, no, we're making strategic impacts and this is how we can do it. So I think, again, leading with the numbers was important to get that sort of buy-in to where we are now.
Right, right. And you're so awesome too, because I love the attitude around, oh, we need these roles filled and we could go to agency or I could just
Just
go
give me a
do it.
shot. Yeah.
And you brought that to the table instead of I think
Right.
a lot of leaders that didn't have like the background in kind of the scrappy environments would be like,
Yeah.
oh, let's outsource that sort of thing. And in a lot of
Yeah.
cases that is good, but you just stepped in and said, hey, I see a solution. I'm gonna go do it and just volunteer
Yeah.
that like automatically. It just shows kind of that like the no ego background around I
Totally.
see something, a solution, and I'm just going to go deliver on it as soon
Yeah.
as
And I think
possible
too,
and
that's
never drive
that
back.
crazy background, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
what did nonprofit give me? That's what it gave me. If I wanted something, I had to find a way to go and do it. And of course, as we scale, let's say if I'm able to build out and have a big team again and do all of these things, the hope will be that I can recreate folks that are doing things similar to the way that I had been doing it. So then I can focus more on strategy. Like that is where I do want to continue to grow and align. But right now, when we're in this mode, it's roll up your sleeves. And that's exactly the type of people that I'm trying to identify and bring in. I don't have to have the perfect biotech executive background to land the great executives and folks that we've gotten in so far that are true leaders. And we've been able to do that because I can just identify that they're the right people and they're going to come in and make a huge impact in the business. And when you're lean, that's what you need. So it was just an easy way to save, a good amount of money to be able to say, like, hey, of course, I still want to partner with externals. There's no way I could handle all of the roles on my own,
Sure.
especially as we're expanding globally. There's language constraints and all of these different things. But if I can take on 6 roles while I'm trying to build things out at the same time, because at that point we were kind of unsure where things were going, it was an easy way to do it. And it gives me an opportunity to be hands on. And then as we do sustainably build out, I can authentically talk to it. So the folks that I'm bringing in, I can tell them authentically how it felt, what we're doing, what that work actually feels like day to day, which is the one thing I don't want to lose as we build the culture here. If we do grow and we start to grow quickly, I want it to continue to feel that way. I want to still find ways to stay hands on, even if it's not within the scope of a traditional senior director or VP. I still
Yeah.
want to have that ability to do it so I can learn it and then help make it a sustainable function going forward.
How many people are on your team now in TA again?
Yeah, so now when I came in, there was one HR director. She has been there, she's like legacy. She's been there for 10 years. So she knows really all of the ins and outs of the company and the way that they have like gone through, trials and tribulations. So she is still the one person we have on the team. I do have 2 open roles that we'll be moving forward with eventually that are a talent acquisition business partner that I'm hoping to bring in North America to start, and then an HR business partner that will be global because we do have our product is already launched in the UK and Austria and Germany. So as we're bringing folks in from compliance and all of these pieces, again, it's like I'm trying to handle all of these functions and lanes that I have to be
Right.
very hands on in different aspects of the business. That bringing in HRBP at this point would be super helpful for us to have in that next step. So, my hope is to kind of build it out the same way that I had done it previously and bring in HRBPs and TABPs and then start to get contractors that almost do sort of the back of house within recruitment. Like, I really like to bring in people and have them be the person that everybody in the company is going to know to reach out to. So,
Yeah.
if I have a TABP or a TA director, I want this person to come in and be the point of contact for all the hiring managers so they can recreate what I had done before, which is having those authentic relationships within the business so they know really what the business needs. And then contract recruiters can come and go as we need them, dependent upon the amount of roles that we have. And they'll get to know folks too. But I really like that sort of restaurant, front of house, back of house. So there's not this major disruption every time a contract recruiter comes and goes, that the business isn't like, who are these people? I just worked with this person last time. It
Right.
allows that consistency, which again, I kind of happened to build it out that way last time because in my previous experience, having that invisible string that there's this,
Mhm.
coherent, sort of cohesive way that you're building out and having that one person to talk to makes a lot of sense and can create a lot of trust.
Thinking about like House of Visionaries and bought it, like we always talk about keeping that like talent function lean and kind of having, like you
Yeah.
said, that front of house service and then like being able to scale up and down, especially in the
Yeah.
biotech space where they're hiring like shifts and you're global as well.
Yeah.
So I think when we would talk about building out a TA function that looked like that, that was also a very visionary kind of idea that we really resonated with also, which is really
Yeah.
cool. You came in and then I imagine that you had so many ideas and objectives on day one,
Yeah.
and it's very easy to go straight into like fix it, fix it, fix it mode. But where did you even start with all of the infrastructure? If someone else who's listening to this is in a very similar situation and just
Yep.
feeling maybe a bit overwhelmed.
Yep. So to be honest, I started that thought process before I even joined. So once I knew that I was going through this interview process and I was meeting with different, panel members that were interviewing me, I walked away from each of those conversations and really tried to listen into what they saw this person could come in and do and what they really needed, right? So let's say I was meeting with the head of medical. It's like, I'm going to go in there and talk to her about what are you doing right now also, like those are my questions in an interview. I'm asking her, like, how would I be able to benefit you by having this role come in, like what would the people function do for you? So it was starting some of those conversations early and then creating a 90-day plan before I even got the job. So I had that ready as I was going through interviews, just kind of assessing it, bringing that in, sharing it with the CEO for him to share with the board, and just said to them, like, this is my roadmap. It's a framework. Obviously, things change, especially in that kind of environment. Like, you come in with a million ideas, and then I could have to go completely left when I was planning on going right. But I think it allowed leadership and the board to see different ways that I could interpret the information that I had in front of me and come up with a plan. So no matter what, even if it's a plan that, again, it's a framework, maybe things change and funding changes and a lot of things did change and I didn't stick to that original roadmap, but I think it allowed the right members to see how I thought out these next steps and how I was going to put myself in this company and start to benefit it when with hitting the ground running. Because especially on a company that is that small and that has so many different things going on, the quicker you can make an impact, the better. But you also don't want to do it by just coming in and trying to change a million different things. I think that's also a lesson that I learned, quickly, especially here, that I saw a couple things. I was like, I could change this really quickly. I'll come in and help. And I was hit with some roadblocks, being like, no, we do it this way, and this is how we've done it historically. Like, what do you mean? And it kind of gave me a reset on thinking, just because this company is small doesn't mean I can come in and just pick up this lane and do it the way I want to. I still need to apply that. Let me get to know everyone. Let me understand their lanes, and then let me grow it out organically, because then it's being proactive in that relationship building and there's not roadblocks. Like, now I've got trust with everybody that I work with. Again, it's a really small group, so I was able to achieve that very quickly. But if I make a decision or if I lead them in a certain way or if I advise something, I don't have to get that buy-in now every time. We all kind of trust each other's visions.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a common thread of all the really, really great leaders that we talk to and we will look up to. They start with that listening piece
Yep.
and the trust piece before kind of starting with the change management as well. So it's really cool to hear you talk through the importance of that and the actual results that brings when you do follow that kind of listening and trust first kind of mindset.
Very helpful. It's like, no matter what, it's one of those lessons you probably learn really, really early as a kid, that, listen first and act later. So that still reigns true. Even in corporate America, it's like that's exactly what we need to be doing. Take the
Right.
time, listen, learn before you start trying to put something new into place.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear a little bit more around Outlook and what's going on there as well, because I know you guys have had some exciting news recently.
Yeah, so we're definitely at a business inflection point right now. It's been an interesting run. Again, I started in August and we had all of these, the trajectory on how we thought things would go, which I think was really interesting for me to see, that I thought it was going to land in this specific timeline and things changed very quickly. So we are the product that we deal with is for wet AMD. So it's a macular degeneration disorder. It's one of the leading causes of vision loss. So our drug is an ophthalmic formulation of bevacizumab. It took me a while to learn how to say that one. Designed specifically for use in the eye. The big news for us recently is that the FDA just granted our appeal. So what that means is they've agreed that the data that we have put forward meets the substantial evidence of effectiveness in wet AMD. So our CEO recently said in a PR that really gives us a clear path forward to U.S. approval. So we expect to resubmit by the time this kind of comes out. We should have that done and in place, and then we will receive a new PDUFA date for potential FDA approval. So we're really hoping that this go around we can get there so we can provide more FDA approved options for wet AMD, which is exactly what we've been focused on for the last year. So really excited to see that start to come to fruition. It's been a long journey, but something that we're really, really excited about this next phase that we're in. So this has really been sort of the culmination to what I've been working towards since I've been here since August. I think we thought originally that path was going to go through with FDA approval about 2 weeks after I had joined mid-August last year. So it's been a journey, but I said this to my CEO recently. It has been the greatest learning experience. I'm almost happy that it happened in the way it did because I think, again, it's tough that it put the timeline a little different than we had thought. But at the end of the day, it allowed me to be so hands on and scrappy and all of these things that I think as we build out now with intention is going to be so helpful. Like the learning experience I was able to gain from that is invaluable. And the amount of time that it allowed me and some of these other leadership members see how we work with one another, it almost forced that extra 6 months of like, let's figure out how we all work and strategize together and create this really cohesive leadership team bond, which has been fantastic. And honestly, it's like the greatest group of people that I've worked with. I love it. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's been such a great experience. And us moving forward in this direction and knowing now that I will have more time to kind of work on this and build out and do it again, that same way that I had done that before is super exciting. So I'm really, really excited. I'm happy that I'm kind of following that same trajectory that I had done at the last company. I was like, is this a one-time thing where I'm going to try to skyrocket, improve myself? And that's been a real driver for me. And I'm sure coming from nonprofit and not having that typical, like, yeah, there's different levels that you can move to and you can strive for, different achievements within corporate. That's just not something that we ever had in nonprofit. It's like once you hit that director level there, that's about as far as we could take it. So I think knowing that I've been able to sort of recreate that again now at Outlook has been just incredibly gratifying and something that I needed personally for me to say like, all right, this wasn't a one-time thing. Like I was able to do it again and have that same trajectory. So happy to be moving into a new role that really solidifies sort of that leadership seat. So they're moving me into a VP, head of people, and global organization operations role. So very excited to continue to make an impact
Congrats.
there. Thank you. Very, very,
Awesome.
very happy to know that not just the company, but the board and everybody else has seen such a benefit to having that lane really be cemented in and something that they want to get behind and show at such an early inflection, right? And, it's still at this time we're 22 full-time employees. So really solidifying that before we enter a potential growth phase, I think can show folks that are interested in joining this company, they're going to value the people because they've made that
Yeah.
seat at the table a true seat.
You're exactly right. I think that's a perfect signal for the people that you are going to bring in as you scale out.
Yeah.
The people are still very central to the business and the leadership's investment in that. And of course, from like your leadership as well, they get to join an
Yeah.
organization with someone that is so proactive and so centered around having a great process and a great company to work at, that even though there's like all this exciting news around announcements and there's going to be insane growth going forward as well.
Yeah.
It's really been an intentional growth rather than just kind of a ballooning growth that I think we see and have seen in the past 5 years. A lot of companies gone through in a very kind of non-thoughtful way. So really cool to see you guys investing in that.
Yeah, definitely. And again, those speed bumps, all it did was give us a lot of experience and a lot of feedback and some extra time to kind of get some things right and continue to build it out intentionally. So I try to take every sort of moment that comes in as it's a learning experience one way or the other. It's like you got to lean into the timing is always going to be the way that it should be. So if it wasn't right in the past and it's right now, it's going to be for a reason. So just hoping that it continues on and that we can bring that product to the United States because I know that it's something that patients could very much benefit from. So it's awesome to just be aligned to that sort of mission, and be able to have potentially a huge impact. So yeah, it's been super rewarding. Very happy.
Absolutely. Well, we will be here cheering you and the team on. What an incredible mission. And thank you so much for talking us through both your career, but also what's going on in this space and kind of how you're investing into talent. Before we sign off, we've gotten some amazing takeaways from you around getting a seat at the table, kind of building a function from scratch, being proactive, being people first. Um, but wanted to thank you for all of those contributions. Would love to know a little bit more around like where can we connect with you? Where can we learn
Yeah,
more about Outlook?
yeah, absolutely. So feel free. People can connect with me on LinkedIn. I can link in my contact info if that's helpful. Outlook is also on LinkedIn. That's definitely the best space. It's Outlook Therapeutics, publicly traded. It's under the OTLK ticker. So, following us on LinkedIn is probably the best space because we put out our PRs there within moments of when announcements come in. So, there should be some great announcements we're hoping coming up. It's a wonderful way to follow us and just see where we're going to land and how we can have such a big impact potentially on patients that don't have access to this medication at the time. So, hoping everybody does follow along on that journey. And I would love to connect with anybody who is talent leaders or within this space just as thought partners. I think that's one of the other things that I really learned. Again, nonprofit isn't necessarily the LinkedIn's bread and butter. It's not like the same networking because you can't make that sort of same impact. It's great to have other people in the industry that you're connected with, but I've learned how important networking can really be, which is kind of what led me, honestly, to the House of Visionaries piece. It's whenever there's these opportunities to connect with folks and to learn from others, I jump at that opportunity. So I would welcome anybody else to do the same, and absolutely would recommend following and joining in on the House of Visionaries pieces because it's been very invaluable to me. I've really appreciated sort of that community feel, and it's nice to be able to be part of something that, again, when you're trying to learn how to get a seat at the table, it's nice to be able to kind of bounce those ideas and network with other folks.
We're super excited to have you part of it. I know there are a lot of folks that will probably be listening to this either in the life sciences spaces or they're about to go through that growth or they're in the middle of growth. We
Yeah.
always encourage that everyone kind of leverage each other
Yeah.
as those thought partners. Nobody gets there alone.
Yep.
Thank you again so much for your time. Really appreciated it.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you so much, Sabrina. It's been wonderful.